Good morning, everybody. Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Be prepared. I will call you one by one. I will share the screen, okay, with the participant, those who gonna perform. Yeah, those who gonna present. I will share the screen. Sorry, I will allow you as a host. Okay. Then you guys need to share your screen and present your presentation. Okay. So as per
Okay, sir.
the names are available with me. Okay, as judges join, I will host you one by one. So you need to share your presentation. Yes, everybody. Hope I'm very much clear.
Sandeep,
Yes,
I have
sir.
already joined.
Okay, sir. You are, madam, you are there. And
Yeah.
next, Vaishnavi, madam.
Yeah, I am also there, Sandesh sir.
Okay, madam. Good morning, both of
Good
you.
morning.
Yeah. Wait a minute, madam. Okay, so I have names with me. Okay, so madam, shall we start one by one,
Yes, sir.
or is there any instruction you both of you want to instruct student anything?
In particular, I don't have anything. Let Anita madam say if she wants to say something to the students.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. And I would like to just mention that rules and instructions must be given to all our participants. So they have to follow it. And Professor Sandeep Hinge is there, and he has to guide all those students. We are there as judges. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Yeah, so I will start the list. The first name is Vivek Jaiswal, MSc Part 1.
Yes, sir.
Vivek, now you are co-host. You may start your
Okay, sir.
presentation.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir. Good morning, dear friends. So my topic is electric arc lamp. Now, it was an electric arc lamp. So, content is what is electric arc lamp, or now we're gonna topic is the arc lamp. Or there are three different type of arc lamp: carbon arc lamp, flame arc lamp, magnetic arc lamp. Now, first one is carbon arc lamp. This is the earlier type, and it is still used in the cinema, projections, and the searchlight. When two hard carbon rods are placed end to end and connected to the terminals to DC supply, may not less than 40 or 45 watts. The current flow through them, and the ends of a carbon and soon become the indifferent due to the high resistance. If they are slightly pulled, say about the 2 to 3 mm, an arc will be formed between the two carbon and white light will be produced. The arc is maintained by transfer of carbon particle from one rod to another rod. It is found that these particles travel from the positive carbon rod to negative one. That is why the positive drop after some time of use become a hollow and negative become a pointed pencil. Just here, just here we can see the pointed one. Now, flame arc lamp. Sorry, the principle of operation is similar to that of a carbon arc lamp. The electrode of such a lamp has a 5 to 15% fluid called a flame material and 85 to 95% carbon. Generally, core type of a carbon electrodes are used and the cavities are filtered with the fluoride. The fluoride has the characteristic which radiates light energy effectively from a very high heated arc stream. Fluoride item into the vapors along with the carbon and this fluoride vapors cause a very high luminous intensity. In addition to fluoride, there are also other some flame materials. Different flame material will produce different colors. Most sorry, most of these colors do not appear to white, and at the same time they produce pain and then lamp. Now, magnetic arc lamp. In such a lamp, positive electrode made up of copper and negative electrode made up of magnetic oxide of iron are used. The arc is struck in the similar way as in case of carbon arc lamp. Such a lamp are ready used. Now, history of arc lamp. Sir Humphrey Davy, इनकी बर्थ हुई थी 17 दिसंबर 1778 और उनकी डेथ हुई थी 29 May 1829. The concept of carbon arc lighting was first demonstrated by the Sir Humphrey Davy in the early 19th century, but sources decides about the year the first demonstrated in 1802, 1805, or 1807, and 1809 are all maintained. Davy used a charcoal stick and a 2000 cell botany to create an arc across a 4-inch 100 cap. He mounted his electrodes horizontally and noted that because of the strong conversation follow of air, the arc formed the shape of arc. He coined the term arc lamp, which was controlled to arc lamp when the device come into the common usage. Now, universities in this late 19th century, electric arc lamp was in a wide use for a public lighting. The tendency of electric arc flicker and hiss was a major problem in 1895. Now, Hethys Ira wrote a series of articles for the electricians explaining that this phenomena were the result of oxygen coming into the contact with the carbon rod used to create the arc. In 1899, she was the first woman ever to read her own paper before instructions of electric engineers, IEE. Her paper was the racing of electric arc. Now, application of electric arc. The arc lamp application include the following: camera flashlight, the repetitive lights of floors and outdoor microscope lighting, blueprinting, endoscope, searchlight, projector in cinema halls or really motion of pictures. Now, advantage. The advantage of arc lamp including following: it generates bright light. It used to generate lighting for a large length to state or inside of the large factory. This light can capture than the state light oil or gas lamp. Now, disadvantage. Sorry. The disadvantage of arc lamp indicate that following: the electrode in the lamp need to replace after a short period of a time. So this is the full-time job for the operator. Now, second one is this is the lamp generator degrades ray like a UVA, UVB, and UVC. It will damage when the speakers or exercise heat emit. Now, this is the original paper of arc lamp. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Can I stop sharing?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you, sir.
So Sandeep, do we have to ask questions or we are proceeding?
Yeah, madam, it's up to you, up to judges. If
So what about Vaishnavi?
Yes, madam, we can go to the next presentation.
Okay, okay, thank you.
okay, thank you, Vivek.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Okay, the next name is Suraj Trivedi, FYBSc.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Suraj, are you ready?
Yes, sir. Ready.
Yeah, now you are co-host. You may share your presentation. Suraj.
Okay, sir. I'm sharing. So a very good morning to all teachers and my friends. I'm about to start the presentation. Two minutes, ma'am. Sorry for inconvenience.
What happened, Suraj?
So sorry, sir. Oh, sorry, sir. I'm getting network issue.
So can we do one thing? I will allow you afterwards. Is that okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay, okay,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Sorry, sir, for inconvenience.
Are you ready now?
Yes, sir. I'm ready. It is
Oh,
visible,
good,
sir?
good. Go ahead, Suraj.
Okay, sir. Okay. So my experiment, my classic presentation, my topic is Davison and Germer experiment. One of the experiment that led to the foundation of quantum mechanics. The experiment which took first step in the field of quantum mechanics. Now I'm going to talk about the introduction. The Davison and Germer experiment was a 1920 was the experiment in 1923 to 1927 explained by two scientists, Clinton Davison and Lester Germer at Western Electric Labs. Now it is called Bell Labs, in which electrons scattered by the surface of a crystal of nickel metal displayed a diffraction pattern. Now, what is the aim of this experiment? This confirmed the hypothesis which was given by Louis de Broglie in 1924 of wave-particle duality and was an experimental milestone in the creation of quantum mechanics. Next slide. So, what is the history and overview of this experiment? How it gets started? So, it started with the great scientists Albert Einstein, Maxwell, Louis de Broglie, and many more scientists. So, according to Maxwell equation in the late 19th century, light was thought to consist of waves. He considered light as a wave of electromagnetic field, and matter was thought to consist of localized particles. And this was challenged in Albert Einstein 1905 paper on the photoelectric, which won him the Nobel Prize in 1921. In 1924, Louis de Broglie presented his hypothesis, wave-particle duality, that electron can behave as a wave as well as a particle. So it was called wave-particle duality of photons. So according to de Broglie, for all matter and radiations, energy E of the particle was related to the frequency of its associated wave mu. By the Planck relation, it will come E equals h mu, and that the momentum of the particle was related to its wavelength by lambda equals h upon p, where h is Planck's constant, as we all know. This is the experiment performed by the Davison and Germer. Davison and Germer gave the first experimental proof of the nature of electron motion in 1927. As you can see, this is the experimental setup of the experiment done by the Davison and Germer, in which a tungsten filament from it is connected to a low tension battery, and from it electrons are extracted, and it goes to the galvanometer and it deflects, and the galvanometer makes uh, displays the deflection. The deflection of galvanometer is directly proportional to number of electrons, intensity of electron, and from there it came to know that electron can behave as a particle as well as a wave. This is an important experiment. So we will be talking about what is the conclusion, significance, and outcomes of this experiment. So the significance of this experiment is it confirmed the de Broglie hypothesis that matter has wave-like behavior. This in combination with the Compton discovered by Arthur and Compton, which won the Nobel Prize in 1927, established the wave-particle duality hypothesis, which was a fundamental step in quantum theory. Outcomes. So what is the outcomes? The Davison and Germer experiment showed that electron beams can undergo diffraction when passed through the atomic crystals. This shows that the wave nature of electrons as wave can exhibit interference as well as diffraction. The main outcomes, and I'll be talking about what is the advantages and disadvantages that time scientists faced as compared to the modern world when they are presenting the presentations. So first is inaccessibility to lower quality data. Third point is limited flexibility for lengthy process by high cost. 6, eco-friendly. And advantages are they are doing detailed study from scratch and journal-like presentations. This is my presentation on Davison and Germer experiment. Hope you like it. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Suraj, at this stage, can I ask you a simple question here?
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
Yeah. So you were talking about Davison and Germer
Yes.
experiment. My question is,
Yes.
can we see or study this diffraction experiment or diffraction pattern in our lab?
Yes. Yes.
Can we see it?
Yes. Yes.
Can you explain how?
Yes, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. My voice is coming.
Yeah, it's coming.
So diffraction. So, ma'am, first diffraction, the slight bending of light as it passes through edge of an object. So we can take two.
I think you are not audible. So it's
Hello?
okay. I got your answer. Sandeep, you can go ahead.
Sir.
Hello, Sandeep.
Yeah, madam, I'm here. Next participant.
Yeah, next participant.
Kunal. Okay, Kunal is not there, so I will go for next. Fatima.
Yes, sir.
Are you ready, Fatima?
Yes, sir. I am ready.
Co-host, okay.
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes,
you're
yes.
audible.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Today, I am going to present a well-renowned paper, Further Experiment with Liquid Helium by Heike Kamerlingh-Onnes. So basically, this paper was divided into 3 parts, and these are the front cover of it. So starting with the very first part, we are going to see how the change in electrical resistance took place at very low temperatures of pure metals. Ohms was the person who liquefied the helium for the very first time in 1908. He didn't stop over there and continue his experiment and with the metals like gold and pure mercury. And he found that the resistance of pure gold is too small at the boiling point of liquid helium. Whereas the resistance of mercury was found with the help of a formula which is deduced with the idea of resistance vibrator, which makes beta V equals to A equals to 30. This formula was taken from the previous communication and the reference is given in the end of the PPT. So the conclusion which it drew from the formula was that the resistance of pure mercury would be found to be much smaller at the boiling point of helium than at hydrogen temperatures. So resistance is not independent of temperature, which means at very low temperature, the resistance would become zero. These are the perfect values of resistance which is taken at different temperature. So at 13.9 Kelvin, it was 0.034 times the resistance of solid mercury. Whereas at 4.3 degree Kelvin, it is only 0.00225 times. And at 3 degree Kelvin, it falls to less than 0.001. So here we can see that a pure metal can be brought to such a condition that its electrical resistance becomes zero. It's itself of a high importance. So moving on to the second part of the paper, it studies the difference of the resistance, the disappearance of the resistance of mercury in a closer way. So with the help of a differential galvanometer, the resistance of a pure mercury was measured by the method of overlapping shunts. And it was confirmed that at 3 degree Kelvin, the value of resistance sinks below to 0.001 times the value of resistance of solid mercury. This is the graph which perfectly depicts the resistance of mercury at different temperatures. We all can see that as the temperature decreases, the value of resistance falls down and became zero at 3 degree Kelvin. So how this resistance value decreases? We all know that resistance is inversely proportional to the area, cross-sectional area. So conductor can be devoid of resistance if and only if the cross-section was not excessively small. As Ohn suggested that pure metals have a resistance zero at low temperatures. But there is an exception of that, which is Constantine, which do not show much changes in its resistance when the temperature fell off. And this property can be utilized to obtain a rough confirmation to the value of latent heat of vaporization of helium by calculating with the formula of Capellan's. Moving on to the last part of the paper, it gives a closer investigation on how the sudden change in the rate of resistance of mercury disappears. So this is the apparatus which was used by the Ohms to do the experiment. A 7 glass, you all can see here, a 7 glass U-tube are joined together of cross section of 0.005 square millimeter were joined together at the top with a Y piece which is inverted. It is inverted because it helps the mercury to expand or contract while liquefaction or while solidification. So at the mercury is filled at this Hg5 and it is used to measure the potential at B4. So moving forward, the results of measurement was the magnitude of thermoelectric effect did not change much when the resistance was immersed in liquid and as compared to the liquid helium. Also, the resistance of mercury thread was obtained from difference between the deflection of galvanometer placed in circuit with Hg2 and Hg3 and the compensative electromotive force when the main current passing through the resistance was reversed. This is the graph which was recorded at the time of experiment. So it was seen that there was a rapid decrease in the resistance just below the boiling point of helium. And from the melting point of hydrogen to the boiling point and the neighborhood of boiling point of helium, the curve exhibit ordinary gradual lessening, as you all can see here. Also, it was noted that a little above and little below the boiling point from 4.29 Kelvin to 4.21 Kelvin, the same gradual change was clearly evident. But between 4.21 and 4.19, the resistance diminished very rapidly and disappeared at the 4.10 Kelvin. So this was all about the graph which was recorded. So on 8 April 1911, Kamerlingh Onnes found that at 4.2 Kelvin, the resistance of solid mercury wire immersed in a liquid helium suddenly vanished, and he immediately realized the significance discovery of the superconductivity. So this was the notebook 56 page where the records were taken, and the Dutch sentence quit Maginong null means mercury resistance practically zero at 4.2 Kelvin. And the very next statement, this her hand melt down means repeated with gold. So we all can see that at normal temperatures, this pure metal don't behave as a superconductor. But as we lower the temperature, they show that their resistance became almost zero and they are electrically conductive. Although this discovery was very much famous and give a essence of superconductors, but these low temperature superconductors are not very much in high demand in today's world. And now we are using high temperature superconductors because it is difficult to obtain such a low temperature in our day-to-day life. So scientists' goals were to improve this. Were actually they were trying to make such a conductor that would be helpful in our day-to-day life. So they found that high temperature superconductor would be much more effective than this. And Onnes get Nobel Prize also for this discovery because he was the first person to liquefy the helium and further discover took the charge of the discovery of superconductors. Nowadays, we are using high temperature superconductors, which based on the theory of Meissner effect, which is nothing but the expansion, which is nothing but the repulsion in the magnetic field. That is, the superconductors show repulsive behavior, repulse the magnetic field of lines, because normally what happens, electrons were randomly placed in the conductor, but in superconductors they form a Cooper effect, they form Cooper pairs, which is a higher more studied by other scientists, and BSc theory and all were established after this Onnes theory. So this was all about the liquid helium, and which gives a rise to superconductivity, and further it gives us an essence how the superconductors are helpful in our day-to-day life. And now I just want to add one more thing, that nowadays scientists and researchers are looking forward for superconductors at room temperature. But this can only be happen if the pressure is 3/4 at that of the center of the earth, which is very tedious to obtain. But we will see that how this theory will work out. And this was all about liquid helium and superconductivity. These are the reference by which I got the paper, and the formula I was mentioning in my slide of gold and mercury was taken from the communication number 119, and this notebook page was from the this site which I had mentioned over here. So hope you like the presentation. Thank you all. Hello.
Yes, thank
Fatima, thank you very much. Nice
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you,
Now, regarding the superconductivity, you have mentioned so much, and of course, it was only highlighted at the end of the presentation. Can you suggest a few applications of the superconductivity? What way it was useful to us? Because of Onnes, because of his
Yes.
research work, we could understand its principle. But
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So, ma'am, nowadays, as we all know, low temperature superconductors are not much useful in our day-to-day lives. So we are using high temperature superconductors, and also in that, the superconductors we are using is in maglev train, that is leviating train, which helps in transportation, public transportation or goods transportation. Also, the another application, the best application is MRI machines. In that, the Meissner effect was useful, which is not related to this paper, but in MRI machines also, these superconductive materials are very well used. So
Okay.
these are the best examples and best application of these superconductors.
Very good. Very good. Excellent.
Thank you, ma'am.
Fatima, one question from my side.
Sure, ma'am.
Actually, we have studied and we know all applications. Do you have any idea or any thought from your side why resistance reduces to zero? What do you think? What happens? Why resistance drops after a particular temperature? Because we generally know that except our semiconductors or in metals, how actually the resistance reduces so low.
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, the thing is, I personally believe, what I have studied from that, I'm saying, in normal conductors, what happens? The electrons flow in one direction, in unidirection, individually, right? But in superconductors, what happens? There is a formation of Cooper pairs. So that Cooper pairs can lead in a conductivity in such a way that the resistance of that conductor will drop off, and that drop in the resistance could help in the conductivity. So Cooper pair can be one of the reason for it, and another can be.
No, that is enough Cooper pairs. I know it's a very, difficult question, but I
Exactly.
just asked because you people keep on thinking
Yes, ma'am.
always why the such phenomena is occurring, because this is a challenge to the whole world to get high TC superconductors.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
So I just wanted to know, because it goes hand in hand, like formation of Cooper pair reduces
Yes.
the resistivity to a very, very low value, almost zero. And of
Almost zero.
course, it's a, little complicated phenomena, but it's okay. Very nice presentation, Fatima. Think of it
Yes,
and
ma'am.
reply me later on.
Sure,
Maybe
ma'am. Sure.
because I told you the whole world is thinking about it. Why
Yes.
the resistance
And actually,
automatically? Yeah.
this paper was the beginning of superconductivity, and further many more theories goes on, like Meissner effect and BCS theory and all that.
Yeah.
So that stuff would be helpful for me for
Yeah.
answering this question, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank,
Yeah. Good,
thank,
Fatima.
thanks a
All
lot,
the
ma'am.
best. All the
Thanks a
best.
lot. Thanks a lot, ma'am. Thanks, Vaishnavi, ma'am. Thank you, sir, for listening me calmly.
Bye.
Bye.
Good.
Thank you, Fatima. Now next, Sonali. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sonali, now you are co-host. You may start your presentation.
Okay, thank you, sir. So today I'm going to present the Einstein's paper on on his proposal of concept of photon, which is concerning the heuristic point of view towards the emission and transformation of light. So, firstly, light was believed to be a wave phenomenon. Due to the experimental confirmation of theories like reflection, refraction, diffraction, dispersion, etc. Then Maxwell, using his certain equations, found the speed of electromagnetic waves, and which was equal to speed of light, means light is electromagnetic waves. Now, this gave a strong belief that light is wave, and energy of light is continuously distributed over the space. Then Einstein said, light has particle nature and it It's not continuously distributed over the space. But how? As it was a strong belief that light is wave, then how could he draw the conclusion that light has a particle nature? Like if you study some experiments like black body radiation, photoluminescence, production of cathode ray, and experiments by Leonard shows can be studied well if we take the particle nature of light. He gave us certain approaches, like if we consider ideal gas in a container, then through kinetic theory, we can get the following equation of energy. That is R by N into T, where R is universal gas constant, N is the number of molecules, and T is the temperature. Similarly, he used the Planck's formula, where C is the speed of light, V is the frequency, and P is the energy density of a black body. Then on equating this equation, he found the equation for energy density of a black body. But it was inconsistent with his experimentally verified theory, as if we take wider range of frequencies of radiation and the density energy radiation, it tends to infinity. Then he gave the approach of entropy dependence on volume. He said entropy of gases and different solutions and monochromatic radiation depends on volume. Suppose we consider a volume VA. Now it might happen that within a moment, all the particles in VA might wind up into a small volume called VB. Then the entropy change will be given. If we consider ideal gas, then it would be given by this equation, and similar parallel conclusion can be drawn for the monochromatic radiation also. Now seeing this both equations concluded that the chain dependence of change in entropy on volume varies in similar manner as the thermodynamical gas molecules do. So on equating these equations, we further get the number of independent energy quanta, which have a magnitude R beta V upon N. Means monochromatic radiation behaves like thermodynamic gas molecules. But does they obey emission and transformation laws? From previous results, it can be inferred that monochromatic light shows through photoluminescence can give the light of different frequencies. Means incident and emitted light consist of energy quanta, which can be interpreted as follows if we consider an incident light of frequency u1 and emitted light of frequency v2. Then energy of emitted light will always be less than equal to energy of incident light by using principle of conservation. Means frequency of emitted frequency will always be less than equal to incident frequency. Now we know that incident energy gets converted into two parts, that is kinetic energy and the work function, which is required for the suppose we consider an electron knocking out of a surface, it is required for the electron to reach the surface, and this is called as the work function, which can be further written as kinetic energy equals to energy minus work function, which can be further formulated in the form of stopping potential. And this agreed with the results of the experiments done by Leonard. And the stopping potential versus frequency give us a linear relation. And it means that potential depends on frequency. Means at high frequency, a few energy quanta will be emitted even if the intensity of the light is low. But if the frequency of light is low, then no energy quanta will be emitted even though the light incident is of high intensity. Now, if we consider the ionization of gases, then absorbed energy will always be greater than equal to the work of ionization. And the further observation in this experiment, in this consideration, showed that only a certain frequency called threshold frequency, only above this frequency, the energy quanta will be ejected. Now, we can say that the Einstein's consideration that light is quantized is good explanation for the results of experiment done by Leonard and Hertz, and it gave the one of the best step toward the quantum physics. It led to the studies of instruments like photodetector, photovoltaic energy converters, photoelectronics, which use the concept that light is photon. Even this discovery that the light is photon has made a great impact in our life. Like in 12th standard, we have gone to the photoelectric effect, we have done the Compton effect, laser, quantum mechanics, electronics, in which we have learned in TYBSc, we have gone through the semiconductors. They all are based on the quantum theory of life. means this paper not only have great impact in our studies, but also in our life also. Thank you.
So Vaishnavi madam, you want to ask?
No, thank you, Sonali. It was a very nice presentation, crisp presentation. Can I just know which was the paper and which year was this published?
Yes, ma'am. It was published in, yeah, once a minute. I will just share it again.
Just the first page. Even if you could say it, it's okay.
No, just a minute. Actually, I just paused the sharing. Sorry. I think I'm not able to share. Yeah. Yeah, ma'am. This was a paper, and actually it was given in 1905 by Einstein, and which was later translated and published in Annals in the Physics in a book. It was in which it was translated in the English language.
Thank you.
Okay, ma'am.
Sonali, I would just congratulate you. You have understood it in a nice manner, and your presentation was really very good. Even
Thank
for
you,
a
ma'am.
student who is going through it, he can really
Yeah.
understand in one go. Thanks a lot.
Ma'am, actually, this paper is quite amazing. Actually, I went through this whole paper,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
this was like I was studying something new. It was first time that I have gone through some scientist paper, and then I started relating the things, and then I came to know that yeah, this paper really have a great impact in our life, like in our
So,
for the future
so I
also.
just, since you have said all this thing, have you ever thought that you can apply the concept of this paper, emission and transformation of light,
Yeah.
anywhere else other than what we have known till now? So any other place, or are you thinking, or are you in a thought process? Not,
Yeah.
if not now, then later on also I'm going to ask you.
Actually, I've thought of it, and like I was like just googled some things, and then I just came across that even the future communication will be based on the light. No, so it will somewhere, it means the quantum theory, it will be actually based on the quantum theory of light. And even like we can go for the quantum computing, and even there are many chips. There used to be some wires connection, and then now which have been turned into chips which actually consist of the nanowires, and they are based actually on this quantum theory.
Okay, Sonali, good work and well done.
Thank you, ma'am. Stop share.
Thank you, Sonali.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay, the next presentation, Abhishek Kher. Okay, Abhishek is not there. So next, Gopi, he has already presented in inaugural session. So next, Devesha Dubey.
It's Devashu Dubey, sir. Yes, I'm present.
Achha, now you are co-host. You may start your presentation.
Okay, sir. Just a moment. Am I audible? Hello?
Yeah. Yes,
Yes.
you
Okay,
can
okay.
proceed.
Just a second, I'll start sharing. Good morning, everyone. I'm Devashu Dubey, roll number 101 SIBCD in Hindi, and today I would like to present to you all the topic Blackboard radiation under the paper Uber das Gesetz der Energieverteilung im Normalspektrum von Max Planck. For those who didn't understood what I just said, it was in German, in which the original paper was released in the year 1900, and later in the year 1901, it was released in Annales der Physik, that's Annual Physics Journal, that was English translation to the original paper. And before I get started, I would like all of you to know what is black body and what's radiation. Well, a black body generally means a body that absorbs all incident ray without reflecting or transmitting any of the radiation fallen on it. So not radiation, ray. So what does the black body does with that energy that it absorbs? It emits it in the form of black body radiation. And radiation basically means, in this case, emission of energy, not the transmission, emission of energy from the black body. To give you a further idea about how the black body works, how it looks, here is the image of the same room. On the left side, the walls are not painted and it is basically white, so the light seems much clear. Wall, we can see the edges of wall, but on the right, the walls are painted. It's like you're kept inside this cavity at the center, and you all the light is absorbed by the wall, and it is you and only you that's reflecting light and is visible, and not the wall, not the edges, as you can see here. So now that you know about black body and how black body radiation goes, I'd like to start from the paper. Now, how the Max Planck started was, he started with calculation of entropy of resonator. Now, entropy, as we all know, is disorder, and resonator, in this case, he meant this cavity shell. This cavity shell, it can be considered as resonator, and he took a number of resonator, not one, he took a number of resonator, and the reason he started the calculation with entropy is because of the specialty did by Boltzmann entropy equation that connects the macroscopic world to microscopic world. And here is the Boltzmann equation, that is S is equals to K log W. K being the constant, W being the probability of energy that is emitted. So this gives us the relation between entropy and energy. Now, for the calculation of probability of energy, Planck made a bold assumption that energy is quantized. This is the first time this concept was said by someone, that energy can be quantized. This equation here says that Un, being the vibrational energy, is equals to P, a large integer. Integer can only be a discrete number, not a continuous like decimal number. So P is a large integer and epsilon here is yet uncertain. And here is the German paragraph which describes this assumption, because this was very important. I intended to put this in German language as well. And later, for the calculation of probability, since he made the problem bit simple by assuming that it is discrete and not continuous number, he could now easily calculate the probability W by doing some observations. Now, observations, not observation, he just assumed n being number of resonator, and he took total number of 10 observations. This is the part of the paper that I have screenshotted and put it in the slide. P is equals to energy that sums to 100. Now this can be of any combination. So he later calculated and did some calculations and came to this equation. And for you all to know that in his paper he used the word complexes, firstly used by Sir Boltzmann, and later he also used the same word, but basically what he meant by complex is just the combinations and not anything else. And now, since we have an equation for the probability, that is R is equals to NP raised to NP divided by N raised to N multiplied by P raised to P, he substitute this value of R in the place of W in the further Boltzmann equation and gets this equation after some calculation. Now, till here, he made everything easy. Now, in the later part, he basically used Wien's displacement law and Kirchhoff-Clausius law and did some appropriate adjustment in those laws, and in middle of it, he came to this result that epsilon must be proportional to frequency nu, that we basically know as E is equals to h nu. He proposed that in this same paper. So he substituted this epsilon in this equation of entropy that he found previously and made the further calculation and came to this result. That was conclusion concluding equation. And with further simplification, This is the equation that you are familiar with. And just to give you an idea, this equation has 6 different variants, and this is just the wavelength variant of this equation. And I would like to conclude my presentation by saying that Planck was unable to give any explanation or theory for this paper. He just gave the mathematical description, and that hold the experimental value or experimental graphical value for the black body radiation. And this paper later helped Einstein for developing photoelectric effect. And so because of all of this, Max Planck, is known as the pioneer of quantum physics. And a thing to note that at the end of paper, he also calculated Planck's constant, Planck's number, and other numbers as well. So I'd like to end my presentation by saying a quote by Sir Max Planck: "When you change the things, when change the way you look at things, the things you look at change." Thank you. Any questions?
Vaishnavi, madam?
Yeah. 1 minute. This calculation part, what you have shown here, you have not explained the terms.
Ma'am,
You should have mentioned the terms, no? The capital S stands for what? You have not mentioned.
entropy. Oh,
What
yes,
about
ma'am,
U,
yes, yes.
capital U there?
That's energy.
So these things have to be specified down.
Vibrational energy. That's vibrational energy that I mentioned in the assumption part, the bold assumption part, and I have missed the entropy. And explaining S is entropy. Yes,
And
ma'am,
how is that vibrational energy going to affect this? That also, any relationship between the two, or you can say a few things about that. At least
Okay,
about the entropy part. Entropy is very easy. You have been studying so much under the thermodynamics also.
No, ma'am. Actually, I considered time, so I skipped that part. Actually.
No, but certain few things have to be highlighted. That
Yes,
was
ma'am,
just a
I do.
mathematical explanation without the terms involved in it. Okay. So next time you please take care of those things.
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Otherwise, it's a very nice presentation. Thank you, Devash.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Devashish.
It's Devashi, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, Devashish.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Devashan. Okay, now next presentation, that is Shivam Jaiswal. Sorry. Rabindra Singh. Rabindra Singh. Yes, Rabindra Singh.
Sir is not going to present. He is sick.
Okay. ठीक है. Now next, then after Rabindra Singh, next that is Ikra Kulsum.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me make you host. Okay, now you are co-host. Kulsum, you may start your presentation.
Yes. Good afternoon, sir and ma'am and everyone. My name is Ikra Kulsum Hafizur Rahman. Today is my topic presentation atomic structure. The Rutherford model was devised by the New Zealand-born physicist Ernest Rutherford to describe an atom. Rutherford directed the Grindon-Marsden experiment in 1919, which suggests upon Rutherford 1911 analyzed that J.J. Thomson's sperm pudding models of the atom was incorrect. Now, Rutherford's new model for the atom based on the experiment result contain new features of a relative high central charge concentrated into a very small volume in comparison to the rest of the atom, and which this central volume now also contain the bulk of the atomic mass of the atom. This region would be known as the nucleus of the atom. Atomic. The Ernest Rutherford, first born Rutherford of Nielsen's Ohm FRS, Horn FRSE, 30 August 1871, 19 October 1937, was a New Zealand-born British physicist. Horn came to be known as the father of nuclear physics. Now, Nucleocyclopedia Britannica consider him to be the greatest experimental science mechanicals Friday 1791 to 1867. Like all New Zealanders at this time, He was British subject and spent much of this care in the United Kingdom. Rutherford overturned Thomson's model in 1911, which his well-known gold foil experiment, in which the demonstrated that the atom is a tiny and heavy nucleus. Now, Rutherford designs an experiment to use the alpha particles emitted by a radioactive element and probe to the unseen world of atomic structure. If Thomson was correct, to beam would go straight through the gold foil. Now most of the beam went through the foil, but a few were deflected. Thank you so much.
So Ikra Kulsum, you
Yes,
are
ma'am.
presenting first time. You are a FY student.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I really congratulate you that you have started with presentation and all.
Yes,
So very good. You have to still polish yourself
yes.
how to give presentations and all, but at least you have started. It's very good. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Vaishnavi madam.
Yeah, good. Ikra has done very nicely being an FY student, and
Yes,
hope she
ma'am.
will improve her presentation skills in the future.
Yes.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ikra.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, your next presentation, Shivam Jaiswal. Yes, I think he is not here. Okay, so Shivam Jaiswal is not here. Next, Nikesh Jaiswal. Are you ready, Nikesh? Hello? Hello? Nikesh? Oh. Nikesh Jaiswal. Hello, I hope I am audible, everybody.
Yeah, you are audible. You can proceed, Sandeep, and you can announce in advance that after this particular presentation, so and so should be ready.
Ready. Okay, okay,
So,
madam.
so abhi Nilesh ko bula lo, and otherwise if Nilesh is not there, we can call Akanksha Singh. I think she is in the
Hello, sir.
next.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, I'm ready.
Yeah. Nikesh Jaiswal. Okay, Nikesh is not here. I think he is here but not responding. So next, Akanksha.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me make you host. Akanksha Singh.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Akanksha.
Hello.
Okay,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, Akanksha. Now after the Akanksha, the Sheikh Shirin. Okay, be prepared. After this presentation, I will call the Sheikh Shirin. Be prepared. Okay, Akanksha, now you are co-host. You may start your presentation.
Yes, sir. So, good morning to one and all. Myself, Akansha Singh, would like to display a presentation on topic selective conversion of olefins into organoboranes through hydroboration by Nobel Prize winner H.C. Brown and B.C. Rao. This is the name of my research paper. This is the abstract of my research paper. In this, it is discussed that different type of reagent and solvents like diglime and THF, that is tetrahydrofuran, are used to convert olefins, that is alkene, into alcohol. So let's start the presentation. So H.C. Brown first question that what is hydroboration? Hydroboration is the addition of hydrogen boron bond to carbon-carbon double bond, carbon-nitrogen double bond, as well as carbon-carbon triple bond. Hydroboration was a two-step reaction to convert alkene into alcohol. It was followed by syn addition. What is syn addition? Syn addition is the addition of two substituents on the same side of the double bond. It follows anti-Markovnikov's addition. This hydroboration was first reported by Herbert C. Brown in late 1950. He received Nobel Prize in 1979. So this is the general form of the reaction. We took isobutene, and when it is treated with BH3, that is our borane, we get BH2 added to the least substituted carbon. This is our least substituted carbon. So one of the H gets attached to the highly substituted carbon, and BH2 gets attached to least substituted carbon, followed by oxidation with hydrogen peroxide in basic medium. It forms isobutyl alcohol. So this is our pure primary alcohol. Now we'll study the mechanism of hydroboration. So this is the first step of the mechanism, that is hydroboration. So in the previous slide, I have explained this reaction. So addition of alkenes to BH2. This is our alkene, which is 1-hexene. And when we treat it with BH3, there is addition of alkene to BH2. And this continues until all the H atoms of BH3 are transferred, because BH3 is a Lewis acid and it contains empty p orbital. Therefore, with 3 molecules of alkene, that is with 3 molecules of hexane, it forms trihexyl borane. This is our organoborane. And when it is further oxidized with hydrogen peroxide, we get our pure primary alcohol, that is 1-hexanol. And this is the second step, that is oxidation step. The trialkyl borane which was formed, now it is attacked by nucleophilic H2O2, that is hydrogen peroxide. Here it forms intermediate, and then here hydroxide group is lost. Later on it forms borate ether, and further it is again reacted with H2O2. Here again OH is lost, and then followed by this we get borate ester. And when this borate ester is oxidized in the presence of H2O2 in basic medium, we get our pure primary alcohol, followed by boric acid. This is our boric acid, that is H3BO3. But when H.C. Brown performed his experiment, he took 1-pentene. And when 1-pentene was treated with borane, we get organoborane. And when it was oxidized with hydrogen peroxide, we get 1-pentanol, which yields 95% purity. But when we took internal alkene, it was not so. When Herbert Brown took 2-pentene and when treated with BH3 and oxidized in the presence of hydrogen peroxide, we got a mixture of 2-pentanol and 3-pentanol. But our aim was to obtain a pure primary alcohol. So how to convert this mixture into pure product? When we took any organoborane from internal alkenes like 2-pentene, and when we heat it under reflux in diglime for 4 hours, we get pure primary alcohol. So now Herbert Brown thought that what was the advantage of hydroboration? So basically the advantage of hydroboration was to obtain pure primary alcohol by isomerization of trialkyl boranes. So this is one general reaction which I have shown to understand. The addition of boron hydrogen bond to carbon double and triple bond appears, but it was necessary to provide a convenient term. So H.C. Brown gave the term hydroboration, that is hydrogen boron bond to multiple linkage. For example, in carbon-carbon double bond, when hydrogen boron bond is added, we get carbon borane, and when it is added with nitrogen, we get carbon nitrogen borane, and here we get carbon oxygen borane. So now we will come to applications of boranes. There was huge applications of boranes, but I have discussed few of them. The first one is borane are used as rocket fuels in supersonic aeroplanes, as shown in the figure. Supersonic means the speed generally which is greater than the speed of the sound, that is 343 meter per second. Borane was also used as a catalyst in polymerization reaction. It was also used as a reducing agent in organic reactions. Boranes are also used as vulcanizing agent for natural and synthetic rubber. When we took monomer and we convert the synthetic rubber into natural rubber, so borane can be used as a vulcanizing agent. It is also used in borane coating. This is the figure of boron, Actually, borane is the covalent compound of boron and hydrogen. So what was the conclusion of the experiment was that organic chemistry was a huge branch where n number of carbon compounds can be prepared. Actually, hydroboration was given by Herbert C. Brown. So focus on the initials H.C. Brown, that is H, C, and B, which is our hydrogen, carbon, and boron. So this was actually a story that because of this reason, H.C. Brown started this hydroboration experiment. He also achieved knowledge in particularly unusual looking reaction, and this follows Markovnikov's rule. That is, the negative part will be added to the highly substituted carbon. Brown also discovered sodium borohydride. It is also a fantastic reagent which can convert olefins into alcohol. So sodium borohydride is a very good reagent to convert olefins into alkene. He also modified sodium borohydride for stereospecific reduction. In that, we get only one stereoisomer. Brown also introduced the term organoboranes. So, thanks to work of Brown, that because of H.C. Brown, we got the term organoboranes, and which is a useful reagent in our organic chemistry. So this was the conclusion of my experiment. And this is the references from where I have collected the data for my experiment. Thank you all and wish you a happy Science Day to all of you.
Thank you, Akansha. You have presented very nicely so much of information in a short time. But you should take care. In some slides, I could find certain reactions are not clearly represented. You have mentioned it as H2O, and you are saying it as H2O2. Presence, there is one equation like that. So please be careful. And are you able to understand what I am saying? There is an equation over which you have written.
But ma'am, actually in that I didn't mention the reagent. It was in basic medium. So from that H2O, OH was used. So that's why I
so
wrote
there is an
H2O.
error in that. Instead of H2O, you said H2O, but it should have been H2O2, right? So you were talking about the hydrogen peroxide. And can you say what is the role played by that hydrogen peroxide? Is that helping in the anti-Markovnikov's addition?
Actually, ma'am, it is a reducing agent, and in H2O2, we get OH minus group. So anti-Markovnik helps that the negative part will be added to least substituted carbon. So later on, because of that, we get our pure primary alcohol.
Okay. And one more thing, you have been talking about the boranes throughout this part. Can you say whether this BH3 is electron rich or electron deficient?
Actually, ma'am, BH3, it is Lewis acid, means it can accept electron pair. So it is electron deficient compound.
Very good. And will it exist as a BH3 or will it be in a stable dimer form?
Actually, ma'am, we can use this in BH3 form also, but it exists in dimer, that is B2H6, banana shape structure.
Okay, very good. Very good.
Thank you, ma'am.
So Akanksha, you have you have written this paper or you have published this paper somewhere? You said this is your paper.
No, ma'am, actually not published. Means I just mentioned, but I took it from Google, and I got that who got the Nobel Prize on this topic.
Very nice presentation, and you have, I must say that you have a very good understanding of the subject also.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Akanksha.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Now next, that is Sheikh Shireen. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now you are co-host. You may start your presentation.
Okay. Good morning, all of you. My presentation is Boyle's law. Sir, slide is visible.
Yes, yes, it is visible.
Ball's law. Ball's law is derived by Robert Ball in 1662. They state that the pressure and volume and temperature. They state pressure is inversely proportional to volume, but at constant temperature. Okay, this is Ball's apparatus. It's mercury. ये balls जो उसने add किया था by the time, but it's air, pressure gas or volume. If first expression था, after added the air, volume is less. Volume is less, pressure is high. Then volume is high, pressure is low. Therefore, the pressure is inversely proportional to the volume. Therefore, PV is equals to inversely proportional हटाने के लिए K constant use किया गया है. बॉल्स लॉ ने PV is equals to K बताया था. फिर उसके बाद प्रेशर जब इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल था तो P is equals to constant upon volume. Therefore, PV is equals to K. P1 V1 is equals to P2 V2. This graph volume is increased, then inversely of pressure is also increased. Therefore, the straight line. And this graph is P versus volume. Only P versus volume. Its hypothesis graph is curve shape graph. Boyles added some interesting details on how hiking out of experiment. He had trouble with the breaking of the glass tube because of the high pressure development by the long column of mercury, so that lower part of the tube was placed in a square wooden box. This allowed him to catch the valuable mercury. Is indicate about the mercury was proved in very slowly because, as Boyle noted, it was far easier to pour in more than to take out any in case too much at once had. Being proud in the long tube was so tell that the experiment was carried out in a stirrer well. Boyles also used a small mirror behind the tube to help him measure the height of mercury accurately. This is a mercury and added to air and pressure is increased. Mercury is also increased and pressure is less, mercury is less. जो गैरवी साइंटिस्ट थे उन्होंने भी बॉल्स लॉ को कंफर्मेशन किया था. There are other ways of treating Boyle's law data to determine how well it is. Hypothesis one was analysis by Garvey, who used Boyle's data to derive the equation is equals to log P minus 5, where C is constant. Garvey conclude that with only 25 pair of observation, it is evidence that the numerical coefficient is not significantly different from unit. The implication is the pressure. It's not a 3, it's a multiply, but mistakes हो गई है. Pressure into volume at constant temperature. और कंडीशन है बॉल्स लॉ के लिए कोर्स प्रेशर इनटू वॉल्यूम इज कांस्टेंट ओनली टेम्परेचर इज कांस्टेंट. इफ प्रेशर और वॉल्यूम इनवर्स प्रोपोर्शनल है विथ कांस्टेंट टेम्परेचर तो ही बॉल्स लॉ प्रूव्ड हो सकता है, कंडीशन है उसकी और वो अप्लाई किया जा सकता है. ये सिग्निफिकेंस है. इफ आई ट्रैवल माउंटेन सो अब जाते हैं तो एल्टीट्यूड जो होता है वो हाई हो जाता है और ऑक्सीजन लेस हो जाता है, जिसकी वजह से एटमॉस्फेरिक प्रेशर भी लो हो जाता है एट हाई एल्टीट्यूड पे. सो एयर इज लेस हो जाती है, डेंस हो जाती है, तो उसकी वजह से लेसर वॉल्यूम ऑफ ऑक्सीजन इज अवेलेबल फॉर ब्रीथिंग हो जाता है. एल्टीट्यूड हाई हो जाता है, ब्रीथ स्लो हो जाती है, ऑक्सीजन ना हो पाता है. इस वजह से यहाँ पे भी बॉल्स लॉ का एप्लीकेशन होता है. इसलिए बोला जाता है Okay, this is the reason why mountaineers have to carry oxygen cylinder with them. Okay, its reference Western John B. The original presentation of Boyle's law, apply physiolo. It's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirin.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shireen. Can I ask you one question, very small, because you are talking about Boyle's law and related things. मेरा एक बहुत ही सिंपल सवाल है तुमसे, वो ये कि क्या प्रेशर को इंक्रीज करके या डिक्रीज करके या कैसे भी मैनिपुलेट करके वॉल्यूम जीरो हो सकती है?
No, ma'am. Volume is not zero because air जब pass कर रहे तो उसके some molecules are there.
नहीं, तुमने एक ग्राफ दिखाया ना that in V goes, it is passing through the origin. So from there one can interpret that volume can go to zero. So I was just asking, can we do something other than opening the vessel and allowing molecules, particles to go out? In a closed vessel, can we make volume zero by any means?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so nice presentation.
Thank
And keep it up.
Thank you.
Okay, yes.
Okay, thank you, Shri.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, the next participant. Okay, let me call the next participant, Gaurang Ghak. Nikhat Mohammad Mia. Nikhat Gaurang. Manish Sharma Anurag Prajapati. Okay. Shubham Jadhav.
Yes, sir, I am there.
Okay, okay. Are you ready for the presentation?
Yes, sir, surely.
Okay, okay. Now you are co-host.
Okay, sir.
Okay, you may share your.
So, hello and warm welcome to all of you. Myself, Shubham Jadhav, and my partner, Chirag Gupta. Today, we are going to present a classical paper presentation on the discovery of first synthetic dye, that is Morvine. For that, we will study some research article, that is Journal of Chemical Research, which is authored by the M. John Plater. And the abstract of this article says that John Plater is working 6 years research program on the failed attempt to make a pseudomorphine from 10 gram of aniline. And the drawing inspiration from that collective work, many others scientists from the recent results cast doubt on Perkins' stated method for making an authentic morphine. Uncovering an improved route of synthetic derivatives of morphine, which contains 3N-alkyl aryl substitute, led by chance the removable and traceless N-alkyl protecting group, which alters a composition of morphine and closely matched to the museum archived samples. The possibility of that, the W.H. Perkins and maybe other scientists at that time may be exploited as this method to make the morphine is considered. By this, that is the abstract of this article says. And from this research article, we get some historical data of morphine. So prior to 1856, there will be no synthetic dyestuff. The dyestuff were prepared from the plant, animal, and the mineral sources. Okay, so the example of that is indigo, which is prepared from the cotton plant. Like that all. After 1856, many patents appear on the chemical synthesis of dyestuff, in which the morphine was first, which will be the commercialized, and on the starting of patent of morphine, there will be a starting of coal tar dye industry, which is spreaded rapidly through the Britain, France, Germany, as well as Switzerland. So for this starting of synthetic dyestuff industry, what does the Perkins do? Perkins do the oxidation of aniline, oxidize the aniline in presence of sulfuric acid as a potassium dichromate as an oxidant, and he get a purple color morphine dye. But in actual, the aniline which is he taken, which comes from the coal tar industry, and coal tar, so it is contain not only the aniline, but it also contain orthotoluidine and paratoluidine. So the product was also not a single compound, but it is a mixture of a compound which is commonly substituted pericyclic chromophores of methyl group, which is given by the Perkin, that are MOVIN A and MOVIN B. These are two chromophores of the MOVIN. That's what was stated by the MOVIN Perkin. Okay. So after the centuries, there were various discoveries are happened, and from that, luckily for that discoveries, the analysis of sample, the authentic MOVIN, which is made by Sir William Henry Perkin, is there, which is in the Manchester Museum, Germany. The analysis of that sample is carried out, and they found out that, as stated by the Perkin, it contains MOVIN A and MOVIN B only. But the Perkin, which is made by the historical method, okay, the Perkin, which is made by the historical method, it in 2007, the scientists of D Mello Group carried out research program, and they found out that it not only contains a MOVIN A and MOVIN B chromophore, but it also contains MOVIN B2 and C chromophores. So that contradicts the MOVIN's discovery. That's what stated by the MOVIN. So let us see what is the work of our author, that is John Plater. He says that, so now let us see, the John Plater contributed this MOVIN chromophore and how he has arrived the correct synthetic group to form a MOVIN as like an authentic MOVIN. He says that the scientists are doing, when the scientists are doing research, there will be a many synthetic systematic science synthesis failure happens due to the adding of excess of acid. So to prepare correct exactly MOVIN A and B chromophores, he given a certain schemes in which we see that scheme number 5 shows a synthesis of MOVIN using N-methyl paratoluene. So he started by using N-methyl paratoluene. The methyl group adding on the nitrogen atom is an inventive step, and the methyl group radiates readily formation of the radical, which is contain the electron on the nitrogen atom, which begins the synthesis, which is shown in structure number 19. We can see that. And the another important thing is this methyl group should always present at para position, otherwise the reaction is going to fail. And another scheme, we see that the similar reaction using a same reagent, that is N-methyl paratoluene, but here the another reagent they taken in the same equivalence ratio, that is aniline and orthotoluene, they taken in 1.5 to 1.5 equivalence ratio. So the product is also formed in a similar yield where we can separate it and characterize it. So after this prediction of methodology was developed to form the MOVIN from an alkylated derivative of paratoluene, which we see in a scheme number 7. There are different R groups we can substitute, that is ethyl group, propyl group, and butyl group, as shown here. From that, our John Plater author found that the N-tertiary butyl paratoluene, that is nothing but given in structure number 30, we can see that was very stable and easily deprotected. It is very stable and deprotected. At starting, there will be a very difficult to prepare N-tertiary butyl paratoluene, but when the reaction is scaled up to the 10 gram of starting yield, there will be easily diluted the product and purified it to form the N-tertiary butyl paratoluene hydrochloride salt. Okay, so when the oxidation of this mixture, that is N-tertiary butyl paratoluene, aniline, and orthotoluene in presence of potassium dichromate as oxidant is carried out, and the deprotection of this N-tertiary butyl paratoluene is carried out, there will be a formation of a MOVIN as like that authentic MOVIN, that is it contain only the chromophores MOVIN A and MOVIN B. This is a correct synthetic method is given by our author John Plater, and to verify this method they perform the TLC analysis. Here in this slide we can see that the comparison of authentic MOVIN, first picture we see the comparison between the authentic MOVIN and MOVIN made by the historical method. Here in the authentic MOVIN we see only the 2 spots for the chromophores of MOVIN A and B, which is stated by Perkin, and in another spotting we see the 4 spots because of presence of 4 different chromophores of MOVIN, that is MOVIN A, B, MOVIN B2 as well as C. And for the verification of the analysis which is given by John Plater, they perform also the TLC analysis, and they found out on the left hand side there will be a spotting of authentic MOVIN, and central and right is for the Movin made by using N-tertiary butyl para-toluene as stated by M. John Plater. They found out all these three spottings are same because they all contains Movin A and Movin B. So for making for this presentation, we referred some references, that is Tanius, FGG, Coa, Alberto, ACCPS from S. Sergio, reconstructing of the historical synthesis of Movin from Perkins and Caro. For that, we referred procedures and details, natures of specific report, J. Sixas, T. Mello, S. Teccato, Chemical Society and Chemical Communication 2007, M. J. Plater, W. T. A. Harrison, J. Chemicals, Chemical Research, that is 2014, and R. Netesky Chem, 1896. Now let us see what we understand from this presentation. What are the protection and deprotection group, which we have seen that the N-tertiary butyl and methyl group. What are the chromophores? We found out different chromophores of Movin, that is Movin A, B, B2, and C. How the authentic Movin is different than the historical Movin. Why the Perkin Movin is red and the Movin made by the author is blue, because they found out the different method to synthesize it. How the stoichiometrically the reagent and the reaction condition can have a major effect on the product formation. What is the analytical method can be used to confirm the presence of desired product and impurities, and how difficult this research work to synthesize the Perkin Movin. All these learnings are from this presentation. And lastly, thanks to all to give me a great opportunity to present myself, and thanks to the Anusandhan competition, Anusandhan seminar to give us great opportunity to present ourselves. Thank you to all, sir.
Thank you, Shubham. It was indeed a very difficult presentation and understanding of how do you synthesize 4 different Movin from aniline. Just taking aniline as the starting substance, and you are combining it with a toluidine, right? Para and orthotoluidine.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes.
Okay. And I have one question. So when you are
Yes.
getting all these 4 different types of Movins, A, Movin B, B2, and C, do they have some difference in their spectral behavior? Or how do we separate all these 4? Imagine you have been given 4. How do you
Yes,
separate
ma'am.
them?
In this research article, there will be also the HPLC analysis as well as NMR analysis also for this Movin A chromophores. But we didn't show it because it makes a presentation very complicated. So for that, we referred only the TLC analysis, which we see in this slide. And they differentiated that the authentic Movin and the Movin made by using tertiary butyl para-toluene. We see that all these 3 are similar line. Okay.
So then their separation becomes difficult, isn't it? Some basis should be there to extract them, to
Yes,
extract all the Movin separately. Any method suggested for that, or in what way each one is different from the other?
Ma'am, these chromophores are different because there will be a Movin A contains only the 2 substituted methyl groups, as well as Movin B contains 3 substituted methyl groups, and Movin C contains 4 substituted methyl groups. That's what they 3 are different with each other. Okay.
So when you say Movin C, since it is 4 different substituents, do you think it's a sterically hindered species when it undergoes some reactions? Will it behave like that?
I cannot say something, ma'am, about it, but
because here when you have presented it, all of them basically they have the similar structure.
Yes,
you
yes,
just
yes,
say Movin A has only 2 substituents. Probably when you treat it with any other reagent, maybe a 4th substituent can also be possible in Movin B. So that's what that gives somewhat an unclear picture about all these 4 different Movins. Otherwise, your presentation is excellent, and of course it's very quite a high level subject to be
yes, and
understood
thanks
at
to
your
ma'am
DYPS.
Asavari madam, they given us proper research guidance and proper research articles. She has helped us a lot for making this presentation, to beautiful, and they tell us when we doing this presentation, it was very difficult topic that you have chosen, but
Right.
you have going to present it very well. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And you have also done your maximum work very nicely.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Shubham. Wish you all the best.
Yes.
So, Shubham, I just want to know that it's a very basic question. A
Yes,
nice
ma'am.
presentation, first of all, very confidently you have presented. Where do we use this Morvin? Actually, I don't know. That's what I'm
Yes, ma'am.
asking. Yes.
I will tell you. Morvin, which is made by Henry Perkin, and that time they made it from the coal tar industry. And at that time, only the natural dye stuff is there, as I told you in the presentation. For to dye stuff the textile material, they have used that Morvin.
So they are dyes for
For
textile
making a food
material.
color, ma'am.
So they are dyes for textile material.
Textile as well as food colors.
Okay, okay, okay. So they are food colors means they are not harmful to anything.
No harmful, no harmful.
So from that Morvin name only we got the color mauve color. Mauve is a color which is
Yes,
similar
ma'am,
to
yes.
purple or your violet.
I will tell you that is nothing but when the Sir Perkin was doing research. Perkin was a student of Hoffman, okay, and the Hoffman is doing research on the drug which is of malaria, okay. So when they are doing the research on malarial drug, there will be this malaria drug is from the nature. They are trying to make it synthetically from the chemicals, and the Perkin at his home lab is doing this research on that, and they found out when this doing this drug research, they found out this Morvin discovery, and this Morvin come from the name of flower mallow. Okay, that was all about the Morvin, ma'am.
Okay, nice
Yeah, thank
presentation.
you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shubham. Good luck.
Thank you, Shubham. Okay. Okay, Nikesh Jaiswal, are you there? Hello, Nikesh Jaiswal, are you there? Hello.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Good morning, sir.
You should respond.
Yes, sir.
Now you are co-host.
Okay,
You may
sir.
start your presentation, Nikesh.
Okay, sir. Am I audible? Hello?
You
Yes,
are audible,
Nikesh.
you may start.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, all. My name is Nikesh Jaiswal, and I am from FYBSc Computer Science, and my title is History of Transistor and its Application. December 23, 1947, a revolutionary invention in Bell Labs happened, and an amazingly simple devices capable of performing efficiently nearly all the function of an ordinary vacuum tube was demonstrated for the first time at Bell's Telephone Laboratories, where it was invented. This invention was greatest revolutionary invention of 20th century. It is solid state device called transistor. This invention replaces vacuum tube amplifier. What is vacuum tube amplifier? A vacuum tube amplifier is a device that employs vacuum tube, which are also sometimes called electron tube and thermionic valve, to amplify the power or amplitude of an electronic signal. This term is usually applied to audio components. Also, vacuum tube amplifier can design and use for other applications, such as a radar and broadcasting. A typical audio vacuum tube amplifier takes a low-level audio input signal and amplifies it, making the resulting signal available to speaker or headphone. Vacuum tube were an important of all early electronic devices, but there was some disadvantage of vacuum tube amplifier. So there we need a device which overcome the limitation of vacuum tube amplifier. Here are some disadvantage of vacuum tube amplifier. Power consumption is high and heat wastage is completely high. Large size, the transistor, high cost, less suitable for portable products, not suitable for smaller voltage devices, not that much suitable for small signal circuits. There is a glass tube in vacuum tube, so not that much physical strength.
What is transistor? Transistor is a semiconductor device for amplifying, controlling, and generating electrical signals. Transistors are the active components of integrated circuit or microchip, which often contain billions of transistors. It's deeply embedded in almost every electronics. Transistors were incorporated into an integrated circuit in which a multitude of components, example diodes, resistor, and capacitor, are performed on single chip of semiconductor material. There are typically three electrical leads in a transistor called the emitter, the collector, and the base, or in a modern switching application, the source, the drain, and gate. An electrical signal applied to the base influences the semiconductor materials. Advantage of transistor over vacuum tube. Lower power consumption, less wastage of heat, size is so small and compared to vacuum tube, low cost, easily portable device, it requires a lower power supply, suitable for smaller voltage devices, high efficiency than vacuum tube in small single circuit. Physical strength is high, high voltage gain, low input impedance. Development of transistor. John Bardeen and Walter Brattain, with support from colleagues William Shockley, demonstrated the transistor at Bell Laboratory in Murray Hill, New Jersey. The point contact transistor is a semiconductor device that can amplify or switch electrical circuit. And the point contact transistor was the first transistor made by these three scientists. For nearly a decade before the first transistor was developed, Shockley, a physicist at Bell Labs, worked on a theory of such a device, but Shockley couldn't build a working model. His first semiconductor amplifier had a small cylindrical coated thin with silicon mounted close to the small metal plate. So he decided to take a help of John Bardeen and Walter Brattain. One of the problems they noticed with Shockley's first attempt was condensation on the silicon. So they submerged it in water and suggested the initial prototype have a metal point that would have pushed into a silicon surrounded by distilled water. At last, there was an amplification, but disappointingly at a trivial level. Following more experiments, germanium replaced silicon, which increased amplification by about 300 times. A few more modifications later, Brattain had a gold metal point extended into germanium. The result in better ability to modulate amplification at all frequency. The final design of point contactor transistor had two gold contact lightly touching a germanium crystal that was a metal plate connected to voltage was also known as the little plastic triangle. It became the first working solid state amplifier. This was the point contact transistor. It was called a point contact transistor because amplification of transistor action occurred when two pointed metal contact were pressed onto the surface of semiconductor material. The contacts, which are supported by the wedge-shaped piece of insulating material, are placed extremely close together, so they are separated by only a few thousand of inches. The contacts are made of gold and the semiconductor is germanium. The semiconductor is set on the metal base. The shape of the transistor has changed dramatically since it was invented at Bell Labs in 1947 as a replacement for the vacuum tube. Here are the contribution of transistor toward digital future. There are dates and modification happen, and the new devices are built from the transistors. Like in January 1954, silicon transistors are built, and then computer chips are launched. 1976, Apple I computer launch, and 2005 the cell processor is launched. And nowadays also the transistor has developed and a modification happen every day. What is Moore's law? It was a most important law given by the co-founder of Intel. He states that we can expect the speed and capability of our component to increase every couple of years, and we will pay less for them. Another 10 more law assert that growth is exponential. Application of transistor. Application of transistor as a switch and amplifier. Transistor as a switch in memory cards in mobile phone. Transistor are used in building some of the integrated circuit. Most of the part of modern electronic devices like smartphone, smartwatch, etc. Logic gets flip-flop circuit, microprocessor and microcontroller. Switch as a use in radio, medical instrument, control system, camera, autos, and airplane radar, etc. And now in every electronics, the transistor is used. Apart from working as a switches, transistor work as an amplifier as well as talking tiny electric currents and producing a much higher current output at the other end. Such transistors are commonly found in products such as a hearing radio aids.
Conclusion: in mid of 20th century, a revolutionary solid state devices, that is transistor, invented, which opens the door to the digital future. In the past, when the transistor was not invented, the vacuum tube used in many applications, but after the invention of the transistor take place the most all place of vacuum tube uses. The invention of the transistor revolutionized the world of electronic and become the basic building block upon which all modern computer technology reset. The shape of the transistors changed dramatically. Today, our technology grows every day and every second, and it is possible because of transistor, which is deeply embedded in almost of all electronic. It have become the nerve cell of the information age. Risto Puhaka, president of PLC Research Includes, said that the invention of the transistor was probably the most important invention in the 20th century. It has changed society, transportation, computers, government, finance, manufacturing. It's affected them all. The change in the productivity of the whole economy, it's probably double from what it would have been without transistor. Here are the newspaper cutting from the Eagle, Madison, New Jersey newspaper. And yeah, I'm took this topic and the information from these references. Thank you all to listening me, and happy Science Day.
So Nilesh, as I'm speaking about all FI students, that a great presentation, keep it up, and you have chosen a very interesting topic. I just want to know from student point of view, how many types of transistors you study? Very basic question. Okay. Types of transistors, like your transistors are three-legged device. Now, which one you use? Like I'm talking about, you have common base transistor, common emitter, common collector. Yes, so which one is generally used in all these circuits, and why?
Ma'am, now bipolar junction transistor are used, and to amplify the circuits, to amplify the audio signals, and also nowadays field effect transition is used, and the uses is same, but advancement of devices.
But I just wanted to know at a very basic level whether which characteristics you observe in a transistor when you use it, whether you want a higher gain or you want lesser gain. So based on gain, which transistor you are going to use?
Ma'am,
like this particular PPT. So what type of diagram which you have drawn here, whether it represent which type of transistor?
NPN means?
NPN.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what is the difference between NPN and PNP?
Ma'am, the difference is, ma'am, when transistor is made by the semiconductor, and it was made by the doping of the other element in germanium or silicon. If we use 15 or 13 input doping, if number of holes is more than, it's called P, and number of electron is more than N, and if we made NPN, then in between N type, between number of holes, where number of holes is in between two others, where this number of electron is greater.
Okay, so see, whenever we are studying, or whenever we are using any chip at industry level, at least we should know the basics of that, how it has been created, and how many types are there, which one we are using, or what characteristics we need. Okay, so very nice presentation, and you have done very well, and study more, and all the best.
Thank you, ma'am.
Nikesh, first of all, congratulating you for presenting at your FY level. And especially during this pandemic condition, you have not met your teachers face to face, but even then you have done a nice job. One suggestion what I would tell you is, why can't you insert some of the, you should have done this before, inserting some pictures of the transistors. You are saying there is so much of advancement in the field of transistors.
Yes,
So the
ma'am.
real pictures of the transistors, where they are into use right now, 2, 3, this becomes, this slide, what we see here right now is a basic representation. A transistor means it should be of this type, an NPN transistor. That is
Yes,
all
ma'am.
fine for understanding the principle. But exactly when it comes for the application part, the real pictures, and as you see, there is an advancement. So there should be naturally a change in the size of the transistors being used.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe 40 years before, it would have been of a different size and shape. And presently now it should be of its miniature size and shape.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Right.
if you would have introduced those things into this slide, then our history will be complete, isn't it? What do you think?
Yes, ma'am. Right.
Neeta madam, what's your suggestion, madam? These children can improve their presentation.
Actually, madam, I did not tell him because first of all, at FY level, I thought he is doing the great job by at least showing he knows about the advanced, applications of these transistors. But it is, he has already shown in that particular curve, which is known as or written as Moore's law, and in which nowadays it has become
Dead.
part of your presentation, where we would like to say, okay, now in this particular year we are achieving this temperature of superconductor, so in 2050 what would be the high TC superconductor, or similarly in transistor, how many millions of chips will be present or will be there in 1 centimeter of 1 square centimeter of a chip. So he has already shown that Moore's law, and but still very few people will understand. He has put it in this presentation, and he says it is going to increase exponentially.
Yes,
But at the end, he did not mention more about this. This is a very important part of his presentation.
Yes, ma'am. In 2019, the Moore's law is dead because it is impossible to achieve a double nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, ma'am. In
So,
2019, it was dead.
as madam has suggested, you have to mention at least when you're talking about transistor, well, what information you are giving. Most of us, we know about those information, but these new things which are happening or going to happen, you can always speak 1 or 2 lines. Next time you remember, and
Yes, ma'am.
it was a very nice presentation at FY level. Very
Thank
good.
you so much, ma'am.
Good, Nikesh. All the best.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Nikesh. Hello. Yes, Manish Sharma.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let me make you host.
Sir, you can make Anurag as a host.
Anurag as a host. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Wait.
He will share this.
Okay. Anurag, now you are host. You may start your presentation. Hello, Anurag. Hello.